Good morning, good morning, and good morning, and welcome to the January 6th anniversary edition of the OBX Wave Report, where we discuss all things waves, weather, climate, and beach lifestyle. And today, for the January 6th edition and the subsequent videos, we are going to have a pro democracy, pro constitution, pro real freedom spin on all of our videos today in celebration of the survival of our great nation, the anniversary of the survival of our great nation following an attempt to overthrow the peaceful transfer of power by a tyrant wannabe in the form of Trump and his disinformed and or radicalized followers on January the 6th who stormed the Capitol and attempted to disenfranchise all of us who voted in the 2020 elections. So, yes, for today, for January 6th, we are going to give you guys the wave report for the Outer Banks of North Carolina. And if Swells were anti-democracy, it's flat up north and moderate in the south, meaning that waves in the north sections of the Outer Banks are ranging flat-ish in the 0 to 1 foot range. And the further south you go, heading down toward Road Anthony, Avon, Buxton, Hatteras, the waves tend to pick up a little bit. It's 1 to 2 foot in the Road Anthony, Avon area. And then for the south facing beaches for Frisco and Billy Mitchell Airport, waves are in the range of 2 to 3 feet. So no major large waves to speak of in the Outer Banks, although as we get on in the forecast closer to January 11th, 12th, and 13th, it does look like there is a coastal storm in the picture. This is 1 week out, so you can take that forecast with a little bit of a grain of salt, but with the coastal storm, we will expect wave conditions to intensify should that coastal storm develop. Weather conditions across the Outer Banks are beautiful today, clear, cooler. Temperatures are in the mid to upper 50s across the Outer Banks for highs. And on the beaches, we have winds out of the northwest in the range of about 15 to 20-ish miles per hour, maybe in the low 20-mile-per-hour range. Gorgeous conditions again predominate across the Outer Banks today, although it is a little cooler with the frontal boundary sweeping through and bringing in beautiful conditions on this anniversary day of democracy survival for the United States. I do want to show you the infrared satellite picture provided by Tropical Tidbits here. Please go ahead and check out Tropical Tidbits. It's a fantastic site for keeping track of the tropics, and also check out Levi, who is a climatologist who specializes in tropical weather observation. But looking at this satellite picture provided by Tropical Tidbits, we can see the front exiting slowly the US East Coast. It's more so, I guess, lingering off the US East Coast, sending energy up here into the North Atlantic, which is starting to fuel a cyclone that is bombing out in the 940 millibar range and is set to head into the UK and Ireland in the next over the next day or so throughout the weekend. And then we do have a little bit of stormy conditions out here for the central US and the Rockies, but nothing too major to write home about. The main feature for the US again being strong storms coming off the Pacific and impacting California, although California is encountering a bit of a lull right now before the next wave of disturbed weather comes in. It is worth noting that the impacts for California, at least as far as rainfall, are focusing in on northern and central California, with Southern California dodging the bullet for the wave after wave after wave of storms that we've been experiencing across California. So yeah, so most of the extreme rainfall and precipitation conditions are focusing north and central and through the mountains in the north and central regions. Although most of the coastline of California is experiencing high surf, gale force conditions north, near gale force conditions central, and small craft advisories south. So that's the main weather event right now for the lower 48. Here in the Outer Banks, we're enjoying nice, calm conditions, although that might change in about a week's time. Worth noting that right now the models don't indicate anything too major as far as the coastal system goes, but with those warmer than normal ocean temperatures driven by climate change, which is in itself driven by fossil fuel burning, we do have more energy, more lift generally in the atmosphere for storms to tap into. And looking though at the wave picture now for the Outer Banks, we're going to look at some swells and then we're going to go through our local observations for today, our 3 local observations. We have a swell primarily coming in from the south, and hopefully, yeah, this will update. So most of the swells are running from south to north with wave heights in the near offshore region ranging from 4 to 5 feet just offshore of Ocracoke and Frisco and Billy Mitchell and the south-facing beaches at Hatteras. And then the wave conditions are similar just offshore in the central Outer Banks, ranging from 3 to 4 feet. And then in the northern Outer Banks, the offshore waves are ranging around 3 feet. Many of these waves in the northern Outer Banks are not wrapping around, so the swell is really not running into the coastline. We have flat and mostly blown out conditions out here in the northern Outer Banks. Looking at some locations for the Outer Banks today, we're going to focus in on Jeanette's Pier for our first observation, as we typically do. Right now, waves at Jeanette's Pier are in the range of about 1 foot. It's pretty flat out there. I was looking at some of the wave cameras and observations, both at the pier, which is a science pier. In fact, you know what? I just learned something about Jeanette's Pier that I'm going to share with you guys. I think it's a very interesting fact. So the pier itself has wind turbine mounts on the pier. But right now the wind turbines do not have propeller blades to generate clean energy electricity because they were recently knocked out by Hurricane Dorian. So the hurricane came in and knocked out the propeller blades for these wind turbines, and the propeller blades for these turbines are on order and scheduled to be replaced. But apparently there's some red tape that the pier here needs to cut through to get their wind turbine blades up and running. In my opinion, I think that red tape needs to be cut. You need to get those wind turbines up and running, not just for that pier, but for the entire United States. So it's interesting that Jeanette's Pier here is kind of a metaphor for the need to really rapidly get that clean energy up and running. And Yeah, in my opinion, I think we need wind and solar all up and down the Outer Banks, all throughout North Carolina. We need a rapid transition away from the use of fossil fuels for generating electricity here in North Carolina, and a rapid transition to electric transportation powered right now by batteries and electric vehicles. I've had an electric vehicle now for 3 years. I've got no complaints. I did have one incident where the battery state was too low and we had to get the car reconditioned and recharged. But as far as like the ease of use and convenience and the cost in owning the vehicle and its overall value, the vehicle is far superior to a fossil fuel vehicle. It's the best vehicle I've ever owned. I've got no regrets. I've had fossil fuel vehicles run out of gas as well. It's, maintaining your energy in any kind of transportation system is something that you need to take care of. And like the clean energy naysayers are like, oh, well, you can run out of battery. Well, you know what? You can run out of gas too, but you know what? The battery's not going to emit all those nasty fumes that are going to give you cancer or wreck your livable climate for the Earth system. And in addition, you get the benefit of not having to go and get an oil change every 1 to 3 months, which I enjoy because, I don't like doing oil changes. They're a pain in the butt. So in any case, yeah, some cool history there for Jeanette's Pier. And again, something that highlights our need to really get our act together and rapidly transition to clean energy. I love Jeanette's Pier. It's a fantastic microcosm for our macrocosm. So yeah, but right now waves are flat at Jeanette's Pier. 1 foot coming in at a primary swell of I'm sorry, 8 seconds, and a secondary swell of 6 seconds. I don't think you could find much of a board that could ride the waves out there. They are pretty much unrideable. In any case, winds right now are out of the northwest at about 19 miles per hour, and this is an offshore flow with the northwest winds coming in. Air temperatures in the range of 52 to 53 degrees. Ocean water temperatures up a little bit at 56 degrees, both in Fahrenheit. Weather conditions at Jeanette's Pier for today are predicted to be sunny, and it's beautifully sunny right now with cerulean blue skies. And the projected high temperature today is 55 degrees Fahrenheit for Jeanette's Pier. Now heading on down south to Avon. We're going to go down Route 12 past Oregon Inlet with the newly constructed bridge, and then past the Pea Island National Wildlife Refuge, which is a sanctuary for birds here migrating up and down the East Coast. And then on to past Rodanthony or Rodanth. And everything is said multiple ways here in the Outer Banks. And then down to Avon Beach to Avon Pier, where waves are a bit in a bit better shape at Avon, running in the range of 1 to 2 feet. Probably some rideable waves here at Avon Fishing Pier, although nothing too amazing. You can probably get some good rides, particularly if you have a stronger paddle board. The swell is coming in at 8 seconds for the primary swell with those larger waves in the range of closer to 2 foot. And then the secondary swell is coming in at 7 seconds. Winds are out of the west-northwest at 23 miles per hour, which is an offshore flow. Air temperature is 57 degrees Fahrenheit. Ocean water temperatures are 61 degrees Fahrenheit. So temperatures in the ocean falling off a little bit from about a week ago. So it is cooler there. You might want to get some more cold weather protection. You might be leaning closer to your 4-3 wetsuit now and wanting to have your hoodie, booties, and gloves all lined up as those ocean water temperatures get closer to the 50-degree range. Weather conditions are beautifully sunny with those cerulean blue skies, and the projected high temperature today at Avon Pier is in the upper 50s in the range of 58, 50 or 59 degrees Fahrenheit. And moving on to our last location, which is Billy Mitchell Airport, a famous location for flight and military flight particularly. We're going to talk a little bit more about Billy Mitchell Airport in a January 6th special anniversary edition today, a pro-democracy edition, a pro-liberal democracy edition, because we do love liberal democracy here at the OBX Wave Report. Despite all the naysayers who hate on liberal democracy, we love it. We just, it's like coffee. Yes, coffee. Okay. Yeah, so going back to the Billy Mitchell Airport here, we're going to do some wave conditions at the Billy Mitchell Airport, some pro-democracy wave conditions here. Apparently, right now, the waves are 2 to 3 feet at Billy Mitchell Airport. So we do have a bit of a higher swell running in here. And I know I'm probably mixing my metaphors now because in the title I said that if swells were anti-democracy, and now I'm equating swells with pro-democracy, but you get the picture. So Hopefully. So in any case, waves are in the range of 2 to 3 feet at Billy Mitchell Airport with that swell coming in from the south lining up. It's not really perfectly lining up as we have higher wave conditions just offshore, but still very rideable down there at Billy Mitchell with those 2 to 3 foot swells. Primary swell is coming in at 7 seconds, secondary swell is coming in at 8 seconds. Winds are out of the northwest, which is offshore, with that northwest flow here coming in at a little bit of an angle at 22 miles per hour. So relatively strong offshore flow over here at Billy Mitchell Airport from the wind. Air temperatures right now are 56 degrees Fahrenheit. With those blustery conditions, it's going to feel quite a bit cooler. Ocean water temperatures are 64 degrees Fahrenheit. Waters are a bit warmer here at Billy Mitchell with that southerly swell pushing in those warmer waters from the Gulf Stream. You might get away with a 2-3 millimeter wetsuit, though you're probably still going to want to have some hand and foot protection and maybe even your hood with those strong winds blowing in those cooler air conditions. Weather conditions are sunny with those cerulean blue skies. Here in the Outer Banks, we enjoy a great deal less air pollution, and so the skies are just gorgeous, and we have less light pollution also in the Outer Banks, so you can also see the stars at night very clearly. And I imagine tonight the star conditions will be very clear, so you'll be able to see quite a lot of stars with that front having swept on through. And so it's expected to be sunny and clear today with the high in the upper 50s over at Billy Mitchell Airport. And that concludes our spot locations for the OBX wave report. And general wave conditions again are flat north, 1 to 2 foot for the central Outer Banks, and then 2 to 3 foot for the south facing beaches. Looking more at the larger, longer range weather patterns provided by the National Weather or NOAA's Climate Prediction Center, we have expected well above average temperatures for the central US. This is something worth noting. If this continues over the long period, we will tend to see also, with that heat, you'll have more dry conditions as lands tend to dry out more under the higher temperatures. Although we have also had above normal storm conditions, so that might balance out the increased evaporation from the land even during winter time. Worth noting that for California and Southern California in particular, temperatures are counter trend, but for the larger US, the expected temperatures are ranging from above normal to much above normal for most of the US, with the higher above average temperatures focusing in on the central US and the Great Lakes region. Precipitation, we are expecting to see above normal precipitation for most of the US, although below normal precipitation for South Texas. And with those above normal temperatures, we might want to keep an eye on that for drought conditions. Here for the Outer Banks, we are expected to see above normal precipitation and above normal temperatures, but nothing too extreme coming in for the long range predictions for the Outer Banks as yet. The location of the most extreme conditions remains California, with much above normal precipitation expected as an atmospheric river aims storm after storm at primarily northern and central California, although Southern California is getting some impacts from winds and waves as well. Looking at the larger weather picture for the global forecast system model for weather systems for North America, the Pacific, and the North Atlantic. Right now, we have a strong storm off the US West Coast about to whip in another front, particularly aiming at North California and Central California. We have another weather system in the north central Atlantic, this one a bomb cyclone, which is now bombing out in the range of 942 millibars and taking aim at Ireland and the UK. So those are the big weather features for North America and the North Atlantic. Here on the Outer Banks, we have that front exiting, we have clear conditions. I'm going to go ahead and run the model so that you can see a few features here. Note the storms rushing into the West Coast, particularly aiming at Northern California by the Saturday timeframe, and then coming in to full force late Saturday and on Sunday with another impulse primarily striking Northern California with some trailing effects for Central California, even as another storm system begins to wrap another impulse of precipitation that sweeps from north to south across California on Sunday. This is in the global forecast system model. By late Sunday, there's a lull, and then by early Monday, we've apparently got another storm system predicted to impact most of California. This one dropping down to the looks like 960s in millibars, so a very strong storm system up here off of the west coast, wrapping in strong weather conditions for California. And we just have this succession of storm after storm after storm for California predicted. As we get into January 11th, I do want to turn your attention to the US East Coast as we have a low pressure predicted to form here off of Georgia, Florida, and South Carolina. This, of course, in the longer term model, so this can be taken with a bit more of a grain of salt. And sweeping out into the Atlantic, and then so we get a little impulse of stormy conditions for the Atlantic, and then that storm system heads off. But then we have another storm system following behind it on the 12th that heads into the southern United States and begins to gather steam over Georgia and Alabama on Friday, the 13th of January, 1 week from today, Friday the 13th, and then sweeps offshore and begins to strengthen just off of Cape Hatteras. This is something to keep an eye on. The storm system right now is not expected to be too intense in the 1000 to 990 millibar range. If the intensity increases in these predictions, then this might be a bit more worrisome, but nonetheless, stormy conditions predicted for next weekend for the Outer Banks in the global forecast system model, as the storm is projected to strengthen off the Outer Banks, then recurve into the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast as a 990 millibar system. Nothing too strong, but looks like there might be a major snow event nonetheless for the Northeast associated with this system, and possible coastal impacts as well. The storm does strengthen into the 980 millibar range in this model forecast as it does move northward, and that's a bit stronger. So definitely something to watch, as the storm is also expected to linger here for looks like 3 to 4 days. So particularly for the Northeast, a lingering persistent conditions with a 980 to 990 millibar system could be pretty impactful. We'll keep a weather eye on it. Finally, the storm begins to relinquish its hold a week later, not a week later, I'm sorry, 4 days later on Tuesday and Wednesday, before another impulse begins to sweep into the US East with a large front sweeping through, and another coastal low predicted to form on Friday, January 20th. So the tendency in the longer range models does show persistent formation of coastal lows. We've seen this in the longer term models with the GFS for the Outer Banks before. And then as the time has come closer, the models have backed off the predictions of formation of coastal lows. So we'll just keep an eye on this. This is a tendency in the longer term models that hasn't yet borne out, but it is a tendency in the models, and we thought we would point this out to you. If these predictions do come online, then we can expect a tendency for rather stormier conditions for the Outer Banks over the next 2 weeks or so. But right now, it's still just a glimmer in the weather model's eye. Going back to wave conditions for the larger North Atlantic and the Pacific, I do want to note that the bomb cyclone is now in full swing out here in the central North Atlantic, and it is expected to head on in toward Ireland. This thing is no joke. It is a 940-ish millibar system. It's packing gale force winds, and it is expected to sweep into Ireland and the UK later tonight and into early tomorrow with particularly for wave conditions, very extreme conditions predicted in the near coastal regions for Ireland, 30 to 35 foot wave significant, 30 to 35 foot significant wave heights for Ireland. And I've been reporting on this bomb cyclone. I might do another special report today. We'll see if we have time. But nonetheless, batten down the hatches there on coastal Ireland, particularly, and in the UK as well, because things are about to get a bit rough with a very strong gale sweeping in off the North Atlantic. And then moving back here to the US West Coast, we have rather large significant wave heights in the range of 14 to, let's see, yeah, 14 to 15 feet here off of California right now, with another storm system forming or sweeping in, and another front starting to sweep in. Not as powerful as the most recent storm system. And then you can see the waves sweeping in with these progressions of lows, with another powerful storm projected to form by the 10th out here south of the Aleutians, and then also taking this system also taking aim on the west coast and of North America, and we'll see exactly which track this storm takes as we get later into next week. So thank you for joining me for the OBX Wave Report, where conditions are pretty are beautiful and calm here on this January 6th, as we celebrate the survival of our democracy, and as we conclude each OBX Wave Report with an appeal to support the clean energy transition. I'm going to do so again by reminding you that clean energy is also a force for democracy, particularly in the US and Europe, as it enables us to throw off the malign and harmful influence of bad actor petrostates like Russia and and various Middle Eastern dictatorships, and be energy independent. And this helps us to strengthen our democracy by allowing us to forge our own path economically, and by reducing the leverage of bad actor states and dictatorships around the world, particularly if we focus on shoring up our supply chains of materials that feed into the manufacturing of clean energy systems, and shoring up our manufacturing base for clean energy, as right now, due to good leadership in Washington, we are attempting to do. So thank you for joining me for the pro-democracy edition, the January 6th edition of the OBX Wave Report. I will be back with you shortly on some special editions of the OBX Wave Report very soon.